What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Boys in the Zone. We have a special episode because it is a Cowboys fan forum episode where I get people on that are just fans, don't necessarily have to have their own podcast, don't have to be calling into shows. Of course, Sergeant Sue here does with the Storyliner group, but it's just a fun time getting the pulse of the actual fans and what they think about this team moving forward. We have a bunch of things on the docket. The Micah Parsons trade, the draft picks that come with that, the Kenny Clark edition, the new contracts with Daron Bland and Jake Ferguson. That was a little bit ago, but we still want to bring it up. And then the outlook for the season and overall, and then really just how we expect this Eagles game one to go. Cowboys going to Philly. So we're going to be talking all of that. But first, I do want to allow these guys to get a shout out for their social media platforms if they have them, or their Twitters or whatever it is. So we'll start with Sergeant Sue up there at the top. How you doing, man?
Um,
And what is all that information?
yeah, man. I mean, I'm Sergeant Sue. I'm pretty sure my X or my Twitter or whatever is something like that, Sergeant Sue 31 or Papa Sue 31, one or the other. All I do, man, I really cleaned up my Twitter and stuff like that. So all I really talk about is football, man. That's all I love talking about. I can talk about it all day. I recently did make a little TikTok for Cowboys related things only, which is also Sergeant Sue 31. It's just in starting up, man, something that I've had in my heart and something I talked to you kind of EJ about last year, and I finally did it. So yeah, man, but follow if you want to, guys. If not, it's all good. I'm just happy to be here, brother.
Awesome, man. We got my guy Jeff Hollis in the building. I believe I just did a fantasy draft with this man. So, hey, man, Jeff, good luck on the fantasy realm of stuff until you face me in that league. Then we'll see what happens with that. Cody, how you doing tonight? And shout out your socials, my man.
I don't really have any of my socials shout out yet. We're still in the building phase of what I would. And I honestly don't know what any of my usernames are on anything. So.
No worries, man. You having a good night, though, and excited for this Cowboy season?
Oh, yeah. Kids' football practice tonight. Daughter's cheerleading practice was great.
Awesome, man. All right, well.
The season's on a...
Oh, sorry if I cut you off there.
Oh, you're good. Excitement for the season, hit or miss. It depends on the day, really.
Yep. All right, so the first thing we're going to be talking about, of course, the Micah Parsons news. The Cowboys trade Micah Parsons to the Green Bay Packers a week before the season starts for 2 first-round picks, 2026 and 2027 years. And we also get Kenny Clark as a little bit of a sweetener to the deal. Now, Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones got in the presser and obviously talked Kenny Clark up like he was some type of all-pro superstar player. Now, he's a good player, battled with a little bit of a toe injury last season, but he's a solid player, and I think that he will help this run defense. But overall, it's hard to feel like the Cowboys really won that deal, and I guess future will kind of tell. But how are your guys' feelings initially when it went down, and then a few days removed from it? We'll start with Sue up here.
I think initially, just like everybody else, I feel like it was kind of like, I can't believe that just happened. Like, I don't think anybody really expected that to happen. And a lot of people were like, you know what, at this point, if they trade him, trade him. A lot of people kind of had that sentiment, but then whenever it happened, everybody was like, oh, wait, they actually did it? Like, that's kind of crazy, And then seeing the compensation was one thing. I mean, my first reaction was kind of like, first of all, that's more money than Jerry's handshake deal that he had mentioned. And I'm not going to get into, taxes and all that stuff and how it evens out. I don't care to speak on that, but it was a little bit more, Micah kind of got what seemed like Micah wanted, I guess, deep down after everything was said and done. And I couldn't help but to kind of feel like Dallas lost that deal. 2 first-round picks is 2 first-round picks, but like you mentioned, it's going to be some late round picks. I mean, I'm sorry, later in the round picks, and I don't really know how much you get there. Do you get a Mozzie or do you get a taco? Like, I'm not really sure what you get at those spots. So yeah.
I mean, you have hit on some later round guys in the past. You think back to like a Byron Jones. I guess you could say that was a hit, but he did deal with a lot of injuries, of course. But he did have that All-Pro season. Then you got to Tyler Smith in there as well, and so it's really dependent upon what this front office does with those picks, but. 2027, just looking ahead to that draft, that could be a very, very loaded draft, and that could be one of those potentials that do you package both of your picks and go up and get the number one pick for somebody that you truly think is that difference maker, an elite player? Now, time will tell if that's a quarterback or some type of guy that will push you over the edge, whether it's an edge rusher, whether it's another stud receiver. We'll see what happens with George Pickens, but all of those things are in the realm of possibility. But I love your points as far as that goes, Sue. Cody, what were your thoughts initially, and then a couple days removed now from that trade?
Initially, I was just more shocked that it was the Packers. Personally, I didn't hate the trade, and I didn't really hate the compensation because Kenny Clark, they talk about his run stopping ability, but prior to last year, where he played all season with a broken toe, he had he's pretty good had pretty good interior pass rush too. So even when Micah was winning on the outside, quarterbacks were stepping up into it. We didn't have a whole lot of push in the middle. I think in a way he'll help that out. He will help the edge rushers out. Uh, as for the two first, I think that's about what you were gonna get. You might have been able to get a third in there. Like when I was playing around with it, I had him trading him to the Jets for Brees Hall, two firsts and a third, uh, just because it was out of conference. That's the other thing, having it in conference. But we're not guaranteed that these are late picks either.
Yeah,
All it takes
that's
is
true.
one injury, and you know, I lost my train of thought on where I was going with it.
Well, may I jump in there, EJ?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good point too. Is when Cody mentioned, going to the Packers. You know what I mean? Why not trade outside your conference? You know what I mean? And not only that, but you're trading them to a Packers team who has kind of been clapping your cheeks in the playoffs, and you just do nothing but kind of help them out a little bit there.
Yeah. One thing that I kind of after the press conference went down, and one of the things that the Joneses were adamant about is getting a guy that was a run stopper in the middle. Those guys came available every single free agent cycle. Now, are they quite the player that Kenny Clark is? No, I'm not trying to say that, but you could have one of those guys for 10 million a year that just solely stops the run. So for them to be disingenuous about that, and it's like, oh, we're only doing deals with a team that has a defensive tackle they're willing to move. Like really, guys, like I don't think that this was even in your train of thought until literally like a week ago when you're like, okay, now the talks have went very, very sour, and we're probably going to have to move off of this player. And I don't think that Jerry nor Micah ever thought that it was going to go down like this. I truly don't. But it has now, and now you have to reap the repercussions of this. Now, what you do with those picks in the future is really going to determine whether this pick or whether this trade was a plus for the franchise moving forward or set you back years and years and years. Because I know when you're building a team, the very most important things you have to be in the Super Bowl or win the Super Bowl for the most part is one, a very good quarterback. I think that you have that in Dak. Now, of course, the down seasons, and you can say whatever you want, but you got to keep him healthy. Two, a difference maker on defense. That can be on the back end, or that can be, on an edge rusher spot. From Micah, you had that, in my opinion. Now, of course, you say whatever you want about the run defense and his woes in that department. As far as pass rushing, he got pressure on the quarterbacks 30% of the time. That is the very best in the league since he has entered the league. He's a dog in that respects. And then the third thing that I think is less so important, but very important in my opinion still, is the coaching. And the coaching is the big question mark that we've had really since Jimmy Johnson's been out of the building. I mean, quite frankly. So you've had two of those pieces, and then all it took was getting the right coach that came in here and marrying that coach with the front office and figuring out how to get the lower end players in the building that can push you over the top. Because you have those really high hitters, the CeeDee Lambs, the Micahs, or you did have Micah, the Dax, the offensive linemen that you anticipate growing more, the Tyler Smiths, the Cooper Beebes, hopefully the Guytons. Tyler Booker, I think, was a very safe pick. And I think that, quite frankly, he was a pick that they made because they were tired of missing on their first round picks recently. But let's hit some of the comments really quick here. A guy, Jeff Hollis, says the way he behaved last week versus Atlanta, shown eating nachos, only guy who couldn't wear a jersey on the sidelines and laying on the table. It was not. before that, he said, I was shocked, but not 100% surprised because of that. Falcon says, Mike wanted to stay. He really did, but Jerry, with that play on the 5th year or leave thing, ended the relationship. But at some point, Jerry made mistakes here. So did Micah, and so did Micah's agent, says Jeff. It has to be a distraction in the locker room at times. That's without a doubt. Of course, I think the podcast was one of those things that were underlying, and everybody in the building before the possibilities of moving Micah came out. I think everybody was, don't talk about it because it's not really a big problem. But once it was, once he did get traded, it's like, okay, yeah, that was kind of a problem in the locker room with some of the guys. You know that I want to say it was Malik Hooker that called Micah out about that. So it definitely was a problem. Drafting 3 linemen in the next 3 picks and Arch Manning, says Falcon. Of course, but we got to keep on triple, double, quadrupling down on those offensive linemen. We'll get it right eventually. And since Parcells, we've missed leadership in the coaching department. Yeah, and I think that, circling back to the coaching thing, really quick tangent, is I truly do believe that the Joneses think that Brian Schottenheimer is one of those guys that's the motivators, and also a guy that is a schemer. And they believe in his offensive strategy. Now, do the Cowboys actually have enough pieces to carry that out? We'll see. I think that they have to be a really good offense to even get into the playoffs this year. I think like top 10 offense to get into the playoffs, because the defense has so many holes, but we will see. With all of that information though, guys, do you guys have any more points from the Micah perspective and the shock and all of that stuff coming to fruition after that? Any more thoughts?
I think that I mean, I can't remember who it was. I think it was Jeff in the chat that had mentioned like his behavior and then laying on the table and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Coach Shoddy had mentioned something like that when he was talking about Perron Winfrey and how, you're in the 4th quarter of a preseason game that you've already got won, and he's still on the sideline yelling and cheering his teammates on. He's not even in the game anymore. The defense is trying to make a goal line stop. And this is in Shoddy's presser talking about the leadership and just the impact and how much of that he loves the game. You know what I mean? And, I use people like, Dak Prescott, which is obviously the leader of the team, but you use guys like Dak Prescott, and he was in a contract, dispute not too long ago, and he showed up and he was playing and he was there and he went to every practice and he did all kinds of things. I mean, we could speculate on what Micah wanted, but, I feel like we could also go based off of what he showed. And he didn't seem to be cheering on guys in that locker room. He didn't seem to be caring about the teammates. I feel like if he wanted to be there, and he would have showed it a little bit more. And I think at the end of the day, it was really all about money. And you talk about some of the beat writers, some of the journalists that cover him have mentioned how he's like super giddy and happy after he gets 2 sacks in a loss, but he'll be kind of pissed off if he gets 0 sacks in a win. So it's like it's a guy like that. It's like maybe he did care a little bit more about himself. Maybe he did care a little bit more about the money than he led us to believe.
Yeah, and I mean, another thing is he got $6 million and $7 million more than Myles Garrett and TJ Watt per year. That's not anything to like, snuff about. That's legitimately the difference from paying another guy on your team that's a true like starter on your team. That extra 6-7 million. And so, yeah, you lose one of those really, really good players. And I always say, like, being really good is the biggest deodorant for some of your other deficiencies. Like, that you can let it slide a little bit if you're really, really good, right? But it seems like there was a little bit more in the locker room from the coaches. And Jeff even said, brought this back up. They did say all the coaches were involved in that final call. That kind of intrigued me. And now, I don't know if that's Jerry saving face and truly being honest about that. And I almost think that, like, if that was the case, Brian Schottenheimer should have been there in the presser. But, who knows whether or not that's the case or not. I think that to go up there and say that does show that he probably did have a lot of support from the coaches. Cody, anything else on this?
Schottenheimer did jump in and say it was a unanimous decision too, in one of his pressers. The draft pick aspect, assuming Dallas will do this, that those 2 picks can turn into more. I mean, if it's a late pick, you always have that team trying to jump back up in the end of the first to
Mhm.
get another second, and then another third, so you have 3 for 27.
Yeah, but I mean, I get what you're saying, absolutely, but also knowing this front office and knowing that they never get ahead of contracts except for Bland, and we'll talk a little bit about that later. That coveted 5th-year option means so much to them. Just having that extra year of control. Um, my guy Falcon says, I don't buy the unanimous decision BS. I think that's the putting the front office putting the brand first. Yeah, I think that's the main reason for the press conference, anyways. Jerry coming up there and being like, "Hey, we're still gonna be a good football team. We're still got Kenny Clark in here. He's gonna stop the run." But the thing is just like your entire first half of your press conference was about how one player doesn't make the defense. And then he flips that and says that Kenny Clark coming in is going to help the run defense immensely and going to change that completely. Like Jerry, you've got to understand the hypocrisy in those two statements back to back. That one player doesn't make the defense, and then and quite frankly, you've seen it the EPA per play when Micah's on the field versus off the field, and it's night and day. So you could actually say that Micah does make your defense. Um, but now Kenny Clark coming in, he's not going to magically fix the run problems. I think one thing that I'm very most hesitant on about is whether or not these guys can actually create pressure without the blitz. Now, Eberflus has not been a guy that wants to blitz at all. In fact, whenever he was with Chicago, they had to trade for Montez Sweat because their guys up front, because they just didn't want to blitz, could not get pressure. So they had to trade for somebody just to get a little bit of pressure. So if he's going to do anything for this defense, he has to be willing to shift philosophies, like we kind of saw from a Dan Quinn. His time in Seattle, he did something completely different than what he did with the Cowboys. So that's a big point that I want to hit on. Anything else from the Cowboys perspective? If not, then we'll move more into what these picks mean in the future and how that can help us get ahead of contracts and all that stuff.
I'm
Nothing
good.
more.
I'm glad it's done, to be honest.
Yeah. So the prospects of the picks. I'm a draft guy. I love the draft mostly because I have never witnessed an actual Cowboy Super Bowl or a deep playoff run. So I always see the draft as that potential to get another player that's going to help us get to that promised land. So I'm super excited about having the picks. However, it comes with losing a truly generational player and a future Hall of Famer if he keeps up this same trajectory with Micah. That's a big thing. I right now I'm kind of predicting these picks to be late 20s, and that's kind of where the Packers have been. But like Cody mentioned, all it takes is that one injury, and boom, you might have a 15, a top 10 pick. Who knows? What are your guys' thoughts about that? And specifically hit on how this helps with not future drafts, but also contracts and like the Bland contract that came through the pipeline, how that helps get ahead of some of these other things, or if you predict them getting ahead of any other contracts.
You want to go first, Cody?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, so yeah, I mean, like we say, it's kind of speculative of where they're going to land. You know, I mean, we really don't know. It all depends on injury and health, and all kinds of things. It was all kinds of factors. One thing that Jerry did say in his presser, and of course it's Jerry, so you really don't know. You know what I mean? He's been doing this for 80,000 years, but he did say, don't rule out the possibility of using those for another player, for something else soon.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm kind of holding on to hope, and maybe this is me, being desperate, to be honest, but I'm kind of holding on to some hope that maybe, the Cowboys do perform relatively well, up until the trade deadline. And it kind of entices the front office to be like, hey, we could use these picks and we can find somebody that really put us over the hump if they're doing well. You know what I mean? If they're not, I could see a scenario where they just kind of stay put and it's like, hey, let's just hope that Green Bay falls off and we get some good picks and it starts to rebuild. My biggest thing with it is it's just confusing to me, like they're pushing and pulling me in directions with each decision that they make. You know what I mean? Trading Mike always seems like, you're kind of rebuilding. You know what I mean? But then signing Pickens and then Lamb and Dak and doing all this Fergie, doing all these other things indicates to me that you're pushing your chips in. So I really don't know what they're trying to do. You know what I mean? But I'm just, like I said, I'm holding on to hope that towards the trade deadline is we're flashing a little bit, and maybe they use those picks to bring somebody else in.
Yeah, that's definitely a part of this. I don't know that the trade deadline you would trade a first round pick. I think that trade deadline is there to make deals and to get discounts. So you're talking about probably some late round compensation for a guy. But maybe this incentivizes them to actually go out there and be like, hey, we got the extra first rounder. We can afford a third rounder, to ship a third rounder for this guy or set us over the top with this guy or whatever it is. And truthfully, I don't feel like they can be set over the top by one more player addition. I don't think they're in that position right now. Just me being completely frank about it. But I do think that this front office does believe that they can compete. And that starts with competing within your own division. And I think that starts, or that trade, sorry, comes with knowing who's across from you on any given down. They know that they have to stop the tush push. They know that they have to stop Saquon Barkley. Those are two big things. So if you push Saquon to the outsides and you don't allow him to rush up the middle, that allows your guys like your Donovan Wilsons and I won't say that any of the corners really on this roster are that good at open field tackling. Maybe Zion, but he's way down the depth chart. But those guys on the outside have to be up to going and tackling. But maybe that does help you, and we'll see with what happens with that. But overall, I do kind of like the prospect of having these draft picks and having the possibility to maybe ship one of the later round draft picks to pick up somebody that you think can help your team. And maybe that is a first rounder if it's like a Max Crosby or something. Who knows with where the Raiders would be, but that definitely is something to talk about. It looks like Jeff Hollis says, yeah, it seems like Tyler Smith is about to get done also. And then if we could get Pickens redone later to keep a potential explosive offense, that could be huge. I completely agree. We are not signing Tyler. We're drafting a replacement next year. Wink, wink. Yeah, that's Falcon with his cheeky comment about us always picking offensive linemen. But Cody, go ahead with your points, my man.
As far as the draft compensation, where it helps us, and Jerry Jones' inability to get in front of contracts because he always seems to be a year behind the actual contract. I don't know that they move any of their first. I think the only way they do would be in a move back. I don't think they'd send them for another player. They're kind of half in on rebuilding, half in on trying to win now. They make a move to get Pickens. Pickens won't negotiate till after he resets his image.
Yeah.
And
they're familiar with his agent.
Yep. Yeah, they don't know his name though. But he's also Tyler Smith's agent too. So, and that sounds like that's
to be fair, to be fair, they didn't know Micah's name either. They kept calling him Michael.
No, Michael.
Yeah.
He couldn't say Kellen Moore's name when Kellen Moore was there either. So it's just a long line. Z2. Yeah. Everybody kind of has there.
I do think that I do like that Jeff, pointed out that Tyler Smith is about to get done, and Pickens possibly next, and obviously we got Bland done after Micah. So it's like you didn't pay $47 million. You know what I mean? So maybe that opens the door for some of this. You know what I mean? And that was one of Jerry's arguments. You know what I mean? Like you make the sacrifice to let a guy walk, but in return, you're able to keep some of these guys around, or you're able to sign some of these guys. And, obviously that could, there's ways to manipulate the cap, and I understand that, but we talk all the time about how the front office isn't able to get in front of contracts. They're more, instead of being proactive, they're more reactive. And maybe, I'm a little bit optimistic, but maybe this is just them trying not to do that this time. Maybe this is them being a little bit more proactive in regards to these other players and maybe the draft. You know what I mean? I'm not really sure. I'm trying to see it with a brighter light.
If you look at the contract, it's really a 2-year contract anyway. They can move him after the second year.
Interesting. With the Bland one, or
yeah.
Okay, yeah. I was just making sure you weren't talking about the Micah one or anything. Yeah, I think that we kind of have seen a little bit of shifting of the accustomed ways of operation with this Bland signing, because it is early in comparison to some things. And I know that there's a little bit of a fuss for some fans talking about like 23 million a year, like that's barely under Pat Surtain. But the thing with Pat Surtain is he got his deal done early. Like that's why you do those deals that are early. Once you see that guy is, wow, he's a straight blue chip player like a Pat Surtain, like a Micah Parsons, you get ahead of their deal. That's why you do that. Because later down it's like, I don't understand Jerry Jones's thought process with this stuff, because it's not like that just resets their contract and you don't have those rookie years still left on it. You have the rookie years, but then it adds those other years on there when the salary cap hasn't went up yet. And once you meet those years, the salary cap has exploded even higher. And it's like, oh, that deal's great for you now. That's where I don't get that thought process. And that's one of those things where I'm just like, I have no way to defend Jerry Jones for that. Now, I will say the Bland deal is good for the respects of, you have the possibility that he balls out and he does really, really good and gets more pick sixes or interceptions or whatever. And they're going to need that without Micah Parsons. They're going to need more turnovers to even be middle of the pack defense, in my opinion, but we'll see what happens with that. But they're going to need Diggs and Bland to really kind of hold down this defense and be those guys. Now, I will say, a lot of people don't mention this, but Eberflus was actually with the Colts when Malik Hooker was there. And that's something that I actually like the prospects of, is because Malik Hooker used to be a guy that took the ball away back with the Colts. So if he can get to that form where he's that free range safety in the back and he's able to get some interceptions on the overthrows and some stuff like that, I like that a lot for this defense. And then Sanborn coming over, who's another Eberflus guy, if he has the green dot and he's actually dictating what this defense does and calling stuff out, I really like the prospects of that for the defense. Now, do I think that we have holes still? Of course. There's a bunch of unknowns with Nealon, with Ezeraku, with Sam Williams off the injury. Houston, what does he have on the tank? Of course, Fowler is more of that situational pass rusher. You don't really want him out there on the rundown. So there's a bunch of different question marks. And then, even in the linebacker core with Murray, with Liufau, even though he looked really good in preseason, where's Overshown? Where's his health coming into perspective? And then if you do have one of those corners go down, is Ravel ready? I don't think Ravel is probably going to play until week 6 or on, from what it sounds like. So there's a lot of question marks right here for the defense. What is the most concerning aspect of this defense, and what is the most optimistic from your guys' perspective right now?
I think the most concerning for me, I think for a lot of people right now, is just going to be the pass rush. You know what I mean? Like, you lose a guy like Micah, and obviously it's no secret that it's going to be pretty tough, to generate pass rush, possibly. You know what I mean? But at the same time, like, we don't know. We don't know what Ezeraku can bring. You know what I mean? He seemed like he was only doing bull rushes in preseason. I'm not sure whether that's something that they told him to do or what. But all this bag of tricks and this bag of moves that they said that he had, I didn't really see any of them. So hopefully he was just being vanilla, like they say the offense was being. But yeah, I mean, we'll see. I do feel like, so Falcon mentioned, seeing a healthy Bland and Diggs opposite of each other, that's going to cause more sacks by the other guys, especially with the middle of that line solidified. I would slightly disagree a little bit with that, just because I feel like Diggs and Bland were very opportunistic in knowing that there was a fast pass rush and they were able to jump routes. I think it might be a little harder to cover for a little bit longer, but I am super excited to see them together. I do think one little last quick thing is, I do think it was really smart to sign Bland, because if I'm Daron Bland, I'm not playing the nickel one down until I have my contract. You know what I mean? Because let's say they asked him to play nickel, he does. Then the Joneses might have negotiation tactics on him to be like, yeah, you're a nickel corner. We're gonna pay you accordingly. You know what I mean? So if I'm Bland, I'm like, I'm not playing nickel at all. Now with him having his money, if they ask him like, hey, we're a little bit more comfortable with Elam on the outside, we know that you can do it. We want you to play nickel. Diggs is going to be the other side. I think that overall, I think that makes your corners a little bit better than if they were to switch that and Elam were to be nickel, or somebody else had to play nickel, Childress had to play nickel, or somebody else. So I think that was a smart move by the Joneses as well in that regard.
Yeah, and we brought this up backstage a little bit about the prospects of not having Diggs past this year, or if he's a cap casualty or a guy that they move off of during the trade deadline. Who knows? Like Falcon said, like I am excited to see those two guys back out there healthy, opposite of each other. But I realistically believe that they're not going to be opposite. I think that the Elam's going to be the outside corner, and that Bland is going to be inside in that nickel. And I like that group, but I think eventually the future is going to be Carson in the nickel, Bland outside. That's why he got that money, and then Ravel on the other outside, a corner slot. So that's what I think in the future, but we will see. And I think that as far as this defense and where they go, I think it really is hinging upon those two guys making plays on the outside. Because kind of like what you said, Sue, they're not really coverage guys. They're more of those gamblers, and they're more of those guys that are aware and always trying to bait the quarterback. And that can make up for some of the deficiencies when you hit them with the double moves, when you get them with the deep balls over the top along the sidelines, where they're not as good as a Sauce or a Patrick Surtain, or whoever you want to throw out there. We'll see. Now, of course, Falcon says Carson, come on, dude, he's bad, and he was bad last year. But that hasn't, like, if you realistically take into account Elam was trash for the Bills, and now he's looking like he's an actual competent corner for the Cowboys right now. So it takes time with some of these guys, and we'll see. And like I said, maybe that's something that's just a spitball on the wall, and they're trying to say, hey, we see Carson possibly in the nickel, but if not, who cares? We'll get another guy in here, because we've seen this new regime and how they're drafting recently is we don't care if we have pass rushers. They took Nealon and Ezeraku back-to-back second-round picks with having Micah Parsons out there. So they don't care about that, and they're willing to. And Josh Butler's another good call out by Jeff. Josh Butler's a guy that will freaking tackle, at least. I know that. And if you play him in the nickel, he's pretty good. He's a guy that is gave me some love on Twitter, so I'll show him some love here, man. But yeah, Cody, your 2 cents on this whole situation right now.
Kind of talking about my concerns already. My concerns more the secondary, and it's mostly due to health reasons. Because I actually had Ravel as a first round grade.
Mm-hmm.
I think Dallas's first three picks this year, really, I think we're all first round graded players. Now, they said Ezeraku was wrecking practices in camp. Is there people that were out on camp? I don't know. Remember who I heard talking about it today, where they were saying that he was absolutely destroying our offensive line, and he didn't look anything like that in the game. So maybe they are just saying, hey, basic rush, don't show him anything. We'll save you for Philly. See
Yeah,
how
but
that
that's
works.
already like I see what you guys are saying, but that's already a super tall task. You're talking about Lane Johnson and Jordan Mailata. Like, do we really expect him to come out there and get a sack and a half against those guys?
Well, not only that, because I was at training camp. I'm one of those guys who I saw 3 practices this year. I saw a regular practice in Oxnard. I saw the joint practice with the Rams in Oxnard, and then I saw the second to last practice here in Frisco. And Ezeraku did look good, but my thing is, like, when everybody's told to stay up, stay up, stay up, when the intensity, Shoddy wants to be physical and he wants to, change the culture and everything like that. But at the same time, I can tell you, like, literally the entire coaching staff, everybody, the medical team, Rowdy, everybody was like, stay up, stay up, stay up, So it's like, when that's really what you're doing, is like, it's really hard to actually see. And especially when, for me, I understand that if I see a receiver doing really, really well on one-on-ones, I have to take that with a grain of salt, because it's one-on-ones. Yep. And the same thing with defensive ends, defensive tackles. If they're doing really, really well on one-on-ones with offensive linemen, you have to take that with a grain of salt. He's kind of tailored more towards the defense in that regard, because offensive linemen rarely are just going to be one-on-one. I mean, maybe not rarely, but a lot of times, like, they work as a unit. The centers, do I got to help over here? Do I got to help over here? Where do I shift? You know what I mean? So it's really hard. So, but I do know that Ezeraku did look good in training camp, and he was kind of a lot of times was playing opposite side during the preseason. So that's what makes me feel like maybe they did tell him to be vanilla. You know what I mean? I'm not really sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I will say, like, it is kind of funny how, like, offensive linemen are considered offense, but their whole job is to play defense and protect that quarterback. So those one-on-one drills are absolutely, you know, made for the offensive or the attacking player to win those drills. So I absolutely see what you're saying. Falcon with the hilarious comment here. FYI, Lane Johnson has already gotten off the ball for his first snap of the game. No false start was called. Yeah, gotta love that from Lane Johnson every time. Depending on the blocking scheme, if it's zone blocking or not. Yeah, that's another thing with like Adams, the new OC, but more of an offensive line coach that came in here. I really think that he's going to help our offensive line a lot, especially in the run game. Um, and does that kind of revitalize a Javonte Williams? Does that kind of catapult to Jaden Blue to like, whoa, this guy was severely underdrafted? Or could we see a resurgence of Miles Sanders? Like, who really knows? But I think that this is going to be first the pass offense, and then we'll follow it up with the run, kind of like those 90s teams. Like they'll get out to the lead, and then they'll follow it up with the run and wear you down with Emmett. And obviously Emmett was a big part of that as well. But a lot of times they wanted to build that lead on you so they could let those pass rushers come after you, and then they could wear you down with the run. So as far as this team goes, like I'm not comparing them to the 90s, but I think that the coaching staff wants that kind of same philosophy of how they kind of orchestrated things. Two really solid receivers. They've got a tight end in here now with Ferguson, and I think that his contract was maybe a little bit of a prepay based on what he's done thus far in his career, and we haven't really talked about that at all, so we can touch on that. But he's a guy that has chemistry with Dak, and he's a guy that Dak trusts. And I think that was the biggest point of was that contract. Was Dak was probably adamant about like, this is the guy that I want to be my tight end, and I don't want to restart again. I don't want to like say whatever you want about Luke Schoonmaker. I think it was a horrible pick, and I think that time is telling you that it has been a horrible pick based on what you see in Ferguson. But even at that, knowing that the Cowboys went and paid Ferguson after investing that second round pick on Jake Schoonmaker or Luke Schoonmaker, sorry, just tells you everything you need to know about the guy. Your guys' thoughts about Jake Ferguson's contract and all that stuff that comes with it.
I think that this is another example. Like, again, I'm not trying to be the guy who's like rooting for the front office here, but I think that this is another example of them, moving a little bit differently. You know what I mean? Like everybody and their mama thinks that with, Pickens here, Lamb here, Turpin emerging. Hopefully, apparently Turpin's going to emerge, which I really do think so. We can touch on that later if y'all want. But Ferguson is due for a really breakout, like a really, really good year, a bounce back year, breakout. They think he's going to do phenomenally. It's like, the old Joneses would wait until he did that and then try to sign him and then try to sign him for a discount. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm,
Whereas now they're like, it's almost like they anticipated this happening just like we did. And they're like, we got to sign this guy now because he's going to drive his price up this season. You know what I mean? So I like that they signed Jake. I do think that he's one of my favorite guys on the offense when it comes to bringing the attitude. Nobody is Des Bryant, but just kind of in your face. Like I'll get up and I'll put a first down right by you. Like I'm not afraid to, get in your face, rah type guy. I really like him. In that regard. And I agree about Luke Schoonmaker. If I'm 100% honest, like good thing I'm not the GM, because if I was, I would have went ahead and did away with him. However, I needed to, went with Ferg, span forward. And I honestly would have just ran with Lipke as my third tight end, man. I honestly think that he's super underrated as an athlete overall, but that's a story for another time.
Falcons got to say in that the same sentiment is like Lipke, use him like Moose. And see what happens, because that's another factor of this is like if you want to kind of build it like the 90s, you do need your Moose. And Moose was an intelligent guy. He would understand what he needed to do on each play, and most of the time it was just blocking and getting a big hole open for that running back. So good call out to Moose right there. Cody, your thoughts on this contract?
First on double back, I think you missed who's going to benefit most from Adams being there, and that's Terrence Steele. I think he comes back to a solid right tackle with Adams. As for the Ferguson deal, it's a really safe signing. I mean, you kind of know what he is. He's not going to be that elite guy, but he's not a bad player. He's top 7 to 10 range. Could be a little better, could be a little worse depending on the season. Super safe pick. Schoonmaker, likely on his way out. I think Princeton Fan outplayed him all through camp.
Hmm.
Much better blocker. I'd rather have him in 2 tight end sets, to be honest with you too, 'cause he's a guy that's not he's gonna go out and hit somebody, it doesn't matter, and
Yeah.
will open holes.
And another thing is like Lipke, he was a UDFA if I remember right, and he's come in and he's shown he can be a really good fullback, but he can also get out there and those out there on the line and actually run some routes too and be a tight end. Um, my guy Falcon said, yeah, Schoon was a pure panic pick because of the runs at tight end during that draft, and that's I definitely believe in that, but it's really disheartening when like you think of like a Darnell Washington who went in the 3rd round that's has better projections to be a really good blocker, or transition him to an offensive tackle if you wanted to do that. And he's just as good of a pass catcher, in my opinion, than Schoonmaker is. And
He
so,
was he the guy from Georgia?
yep, big
I think he like
6'7", like
6'9" too, right? Or
yes,
something like that.
yep,
Yeah,
yep.
6'7". Dude's huge.
My guy Jeff Hollis says Ferguson needs to get his head right. I think he fell into his own hype when they all kept saying the next Kelsey. If he gets his head back on, could be huge because you can't cover all. Yeah, and I don't know that he necessarily got his head too big, but I do think that there's a little bit of that, like, oh man, like what was he, like a 5th round draft pick or something like that? And now I'm kind of the starting tight end for the Dallas Cowboys. Like maybe I don't have to always be out there working as hard as I could. Um, and it was kind of funny because like if you remember back at that time, it was Ferguson, but there was also another guy, Hendershot, who was actually pretty decent at during his rookie season as well. Now he had that juggling problem, popped it up in the air, and probably cost us one of those games we should have had because of that. But it's funny that you had 2 young tight ends already on the roster that you kind of felt good about. And then they still invested in that tight end position in the draft and felt like, oh, we really need to set us over the top and get this guy. I feel like it was a reach, and I think that everybody knows that now. And that's what it is. Worst case, Ferguson gets his deal, and we get Blake Jarwin 2.0.
Can I
Yeah,
hit
that is worst case. Sorry, go ahead,
Can
Sue.
No, I just want to hit 2 quick points on the things that you were saying, if that's okay. The first one is, well, I actually not really what you were saying, but more so what Jeff was saying. And this isn't me completely disagreeing with Jeff. It's just giving my perspective on it. A lot of people, I mean, I'm just defending Jake a little bit because a lot of people said that, he just got a big head and that's why he fell off and this and that. But he was also playing without his quarterback, you know what I mean? And a lot of times they were asking him to stay on the line and kind of help as a chip blocker, just help as an extra blocker. And his role kind of changed last year. Like if you go back and watch the games, like one, he was the second target all the time, like somebody else had mentioned in the chat. So he was treated like the second target all the time. We had no other weapon outside of CD. And 2, he was doing a whole lot of blocking. And 3, he didn't have his quarterback. You know what I mean? So he's going to have a fall off year when something like that happens. And
Yeah.
Again, that leads me to believe that the Joneses made a good decision in being like, hey, all the odds are stacked against you. You had a bad season. Now let's sign him while it's cheaper. Like, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
So that's one thing. The second thing that I wanted to bring up is in regards to the front office, now I'm going to kind of dump on them a little bit because it's like they forget or something like that, or they don't have the trust in Linda Wells because Linda Wells, the tight ends
He's one
coach,
of the best tight ends coaches in the league.
he just keeps making good tight ends and good tight ends. It doesn't matter who you throw at him, he makes something out of them. You know what I mean? So maybe we need to not panic, like somebody else mentioned in the chat, not panic and grab a tight end and just know who you got there coaching them and know that they're gonna fare well. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's what I gotta say.
Yeah, and another thing is like Ferguson did deal with an injury last year. Like that's a real thing. And yes, like we had a number 2 in Cooks, but like literally after I think it was game 3, he went down and had to get that surgery or whatever it was done. He was not the same after that. Like he could not create separation after that. So it really was Ferguson as the second option, like you mentioned. So anything else on Ferguson, or do you guys want to move on to some of the projections for the season and stuff like that?
I'm good, brother.
All right, projection time. Or let's hit this comment really quick from Falcon. In my opinion, Steele is gone next year. We'll see with what happens with that. If it's true with how much they like Nate Thomas, and he's a 7th rounder. Like this is a big thing that I know a lot of people want to be like, wait, he's good all training camp. He was good in the preseason. That is preseason and training camp, guys. That's not facing TJ Watt, Myles Garrett, Max Crosby, Micah Parsons now. Like that's not those guys. And sure, yeah, move Guyton over to right tackle to replace Steele, and maybe he will be better over there. But to think that Nate Thomas is the guy out there protecting Dak when Dak has went down with a calf, with a broken leg, with a finger. There's probably something else in there I'm missing. Like
Hamstring
recently,
torn off his bone.
exactly, hamstring. That prospect of having Nate Thomas out there is just something sour, completely repugnant in my opinion. I just cannot take my best asset and ask a 7th round guy to protect his blind spot. It's just not me. I just think that's foolishness, and I think that's something that would hurt this team in the long term. We'll see, and we'll see with what happens with Adams if he can revitalize Steele and give you a top 15 right tackle in the league, or hopefully top 10. Like if he gets back to that area, I don't think he's ever going to be like a really good pass blocker, but what he gives you as a run blocker is good. And I think that's where you're really hoping, he returns to form in that respect. Maybe I overlooked it. Did Hoffman make the team? Yes, I believe Hoffman did make the team. Ferguson was injured. Got to remember that. Yep, exactly what I was saying. Don't get me wrong. I want Ferg to ball out big time. Call it not a tackle in next year's round. Yeah, I mean, we do got the extra first rounder. Falcon, you're not lying. So yeah, we could afford another tackle in the 20 range that probably won't pan out. But hey, man, just throw stuff out the wall and hope that it sticks. Projections for this season, guys. Realistically, where are you guys at? I think I'm hovering around 8, 9, 10 win area for me. I think that your quarterback realistically is a top 10 quarterback. If he can play up to his peak, you've got like a top 6 quarterback. If he kind of falls down to kind of what we saw last year a little bit, you're looking at like top 13 quarterback. So there's a little bit of discrepancy, and there's some who knows which version of Dak you're going to get, but I think it starts with this offensive line, keeping him clean and allowing him to step up in the pocket. That comes down to Tyler Smith, Cooper Beebe, and now Tyler Booker. Those are 3 guys I have immense trust in, and allowing Dak to step up, get his rhythm throws in there, and kind of get his swagger during the game is going to go a long, long way for me. The defense, I've already said kind of what I felt about it. I think it's going to be a top or a bottom 15 unit. We'll see. But I think you got a really good special teams with Aubrey. If he can consistently hit like 65ers, if you actually trust him to hit like 65, that helps you so much flipping the field, because you only have to get literally like maybe 2 first downs and you're in field goal range for most drives. That's huge if you actually trust him. But if he misses, you're giving great field position to the other team. So that's where that comes in. Your guys' opinions, and we'll start with Cody this time.
So for me, I do worry a little bit about Dak's health and his ability to continue healthy, because if Dak goes down, I don't think we win a game the rest of the season. Just don't.
Milton time. And then you're talking about a really good draft pick, boys.
I go back and forth, though, because I do think this offense is probably going to be top 5. Assuming Dak's healthy. Yeah, Pickens on the outside with Lamb. Ferguson back and healthy. Yeah, Cavante Turpin running all kinds of different stuff. And then third receiver dropped it.
Jalen Tolbert?
No, not Tolbert. I think
third receiver, I think, would be Jalen Tolbert.
I thought he was below. Oh, it's Flournoy.
Flournoy. Well, he's in the practice squad now, so yeah. You're only holding 4 right now with Mingo on the IR, and then Tolbert's your wide receiver 3, and then you got Turpin. And put some respect on Turpin's name. He is the leading rusher from last year returning on this team. That's right. That's your running back 1, boys.
But he's not only going to be a running back in this team. I don't think they're moving him around a lot, like what Tavon Austin did at West Virginia.
Yeah, and that's kind of exciting because I don't want to only see Turpin out there during, jet sweeps and stuff like that. I do kind of feel like he could be a legitimate receiver. Like, I think it was the Thanksgiving game like 2 years ago where he had that deep shot over the middle, the seam ball from Dak. It was just beautiful, man. It was just a thing of beauty. He just ran up, split those safeties in the middle, and just caught it, touchdown. Easy as that. He's a guy that, especially if you can get Pickens and CD to work outside more often than not. And I know that the versatility of CD, able to go into that slot and really work in there. If you can get those guys more primary and then use Turpin in that slot, that's very intriguing to me. Sue?
That
Oh,
I'm
go ahead,
sorry,
Cody.
Cody. Yeah, go ahead.
that that or have trips to one side and Turpin is the lone man on the other side. Get him space 1-on-1.
Yeah. Yeah, 2x1 set or even a 3x1 set if you really want to go like that, and then just use those 11 personnels more heavily, which I think is more advantageous for how your team is set up anyways. Yeah, I think that could work for sure. Do you have a prediction for like wins or anything, Cody?
I think I'm pretty much stuck at like 10-7 with a fringe playoff berth.
Okay. That's it. Jeff Hollis, the team won 7 last year and was extremely depleted for the most part. Going with 11 wins. That's kind of lofty for me. My guy Falcon says, for real, 11 wins is the absolute ceiling in my opinion. Call me crazy, but Flournoy overrated. He's only ever wowed me on a specific play against fourth or practice squad guys. He just doesn't have it, in my opinion. Yeah, I really, I'm sorry. I gotta get my 2 cents out here. I do not understand the infatuation with these bottom of the roster wide receivers and how we always get our panties in a bunch because they're released or whatever. These guys are special teams guys. They're not getting on the field and actually catching balls from Dak Prescott or getting any meaningful targets. Like the most targets they'll see in a game is 2, maybe. Like, we've got to stop caring about that so much. They're special teams guys. Sorry, I had to get that on my chest. Sue, go ahead, man.
You're good, man. I will say, just in regards to what Falcon said, Flournoy did really well in practice. He ran with the ones a lot, and Dak seemed to really like him. I do feel like if it was me picking, and I know you don't want to spend too much time on this, EJ, but if it was me picking, I definitely would have kept Brooks. I mean, he emerged as like a deep threat, was Milton's favorite target deep, and he's been your special teams guy for years. He's made this roster before. He has the experience. They decided to go with Flournoy, but it is what it is. But regarding this team and what I see going forward and projections, I do think that this offense is going to be elite. I really do think that. I mean, even with the questionable run game, and by questionable, I mean we don't really know what we're going to see. I do think that the pass is going to open up the run a little bit. My only argument against myself would be that we did face a lot of like not stacked boxes last year, and we still couldn't run the ball. But I just think that, man, we're just going to do a better job this year with the targets that we have. And if they decide not to, if they decide to come up and try to stop our run, we're just going to punish them. You know what I mean? And I will go. I've done this already a couple times in different forms, but I will continue to do this. I think Turpin's going to be a much bigger weapon than a lot of people are assuming. I think a lot of people still think he's our guy that's in the backfield that maybe takes a jet sweep or maybe just runs it here or there, or he's our return guy. Like I saw him against the Rams in that practice. Dude, they're doing all kinds of things with him. He's not just running, jet sweeps. He's not doing this, that. They're putting trips to the right. Pickens on the outside, Lamb in the middle, and they have Turpin as the 3, and they'll motion him over, they'll motion him back, and if that corner follows him as if it's man, they're like, okay, cool, Turpin's already open right now. They'll send him on a drag, they'll send him on something across the field, or they'll drag a couple times and then he'll fake it in, then he'll hit the corner. Like he caught a lot of balls. My biggest issue with him is going to be if he can catch all of them because they're going to come his way. But I do feel like he's going to be a force this year that he's going to surprise a lot of people. So with all that being said, if you have a healthy Dak, with the reins, and you have Pickens, you have Lamb, you have Turpin. Tolbert is just the guy to me, you know what I mean? But he does the right thing. He's where he needs to be. If the run game can give you, 85 yards a game. I don't care. I think that we're going to do well, man. The defense will figure itself out. I would say 10 or 11 wins is where I'm going to go. And I'm going to do that confidently. You know what I mean? Like I said, if we have Dak, the whole NFC East changes. You know what I mean? Like, you might win them all against the NFC East. You know, that's how much I really, truly think that Dak runs the East. You know, I said that today. And I'll close out with something later. I don't want to continue on this tangent, but I do want to kind of give a little bit of a rah-rah speech on Dak going against the Eagles this week. But I'll do that in a little bit if you want to go.
I like the point that you had about the trips, trips right, trips left, whatever it is, and kind of using those other two guys in the smash concept, and then using Turpin with the deep over or something like that, just clearing that out. I think that could work great, especially with the free release. You know, like you're saying, you know, off the line, having him as that third wide receiver behind that and giving him that free release would be the prospects of that would be really good. As far as just like the matchup problems that a Pickens actually presents on a down to down basis, and allowing CD to actually eat again and have a competent wide receiver too, and really like a wide receiver 1B. I know a lot of people say that, but I legitimately think Pickens is that good. And he's never really played with a quarterback that's as good as Dak, you know, and I don't think that people understand how much that actually matters. Now, there's a few guys that are CDs, the Chases, the Jeffersons, that will work with any guy. It doesn't matter, you know what I mean? And even Pickens, to some respect, he's had 1,000-yard seasons, but when you put him with an all-pro guy that is a Dak Prescott, he can have a seriously good season. Now, who knows if he eclipses like 1,300 yards or something like that, but realistically, I think that easily 1,000 yards, as long as Dak and him stay healthy, and also CD, of course. If CD goes down or something, that's going to drag a lot of coverage to pick inside. But I think 1,000 yards for both of these receivers is completely in the realm of possibility. And then 700 for a Ferguson or something like that in there. And then, you know, the other targets will dictate how they dictate. But I think it's going to be a big year for Dak, and I think it's going to need to be. Somebody I can't remember who said it, but I've been holding on to this since I've heard it. Was this is going to have to be the 2024 Bengals team on offense, where they in order to win, they're going to have to go out there and score a lot of points, and they're going to have to throw it a lot of times. And I ever since I've heard that, I'm just like, yeah, that's what they're going to have to be, because they have the weapons, they have their Jamar Chase and CeeDee Lamb. They have their T. Higgins and George Pickens. And I think that that's what Dak is going to have to be, is that gunslinger. And maybe he does throw a little bit more interceptions this year. But I think that, you know, realistically, 35 touchdowns are completely in the realm of possibilities. And if this Brian Schottenheimer offense does go to the, you know, where some people think that it can, he could throw for another 40 touchdowns this year. So we'll see. Jeff says, yep. Plus CD is huge in the slot. Yeah. If you want to move him around the formation, it makes it so much easier. I remember I went to that Baltimore Ravens game, and the Ravens bracketed over the top CD on every single play, had that safety help directly over, just waiting for whatever, you know, to just take him out, because they didn't trust anybody else out there to make plays. And that helped them a lot during that game. Like you remember, like Dak actually had a decently good game. I think he had 3 touchdowns that game, but it all came in garbage time during that kind of, you know, run to get back in the game. And at that point, CD was actually out of the game. It was different guys. It was Jalen Tolbert, I think, had 2 touchdowns that game. It was like a Turpin who had a touchdown. Like it was like guys that are just not the usual suspect out there to be the recipient of that. So I think that it all hinges upon Dak, and we'll see. I'm kind of predicting 9-10 wins. For me, I just don't have a lot of faith in defense. Moving on to the Eagles game this Thursday, 2 days away. Are you guys ready for some football?
Oh, bro, so ready.
Hey, man, it's going to be a fun night. I don't know if I'm going to do anything on the YouTube side or what, or if I'm just going to stick to the Twitter side, but it's going to be so much fun. Yeah, Tolbert and Turpin both scored in the fourth quarter. Jeff confirmed. First thing that stands out for you guys with this game against the Eagles, obviously, we have got to stop. The Sports 78 coming in. What's good, gentlemen? I think Ferguson will have a solid game. Didn't score a touchdown last year, and Dak will want to change that this year. Absolutely, I think Ferguson's a big part of this passing game. We mentioned him earlier on this podcast, and just trying to get him involved more heavily and not so much in that delayed chip and then run out and do your route. Just strict run out with your route. You know what I mean? That's incredibly hinging upon what you have in Tyler Guyton or Nate Thomas, whoever's going to be starting out there. But if those guys can hold their own, which I'm really not worried about this Eagles pass rush. I think it's, oh gosh, what's the guy? Jackson or I can't even remember his name. And then Nolan Smith are like their top two guys. So it's not really big name guys. It's some guys that are kind of, I mean, Nolan Smith, of course, like from his time at Georgia, he was kind of that undersized guy, decent in run defense, but he had some twitch. But he just hasn't really shown it all that much for the Eagles. So we'll see. Yeah, Jalix Hunt. Thank you so much. Jalix Hunt is their other pass rusher. So we'll see with how much problems they pose to the Cowboys. But I think it's really coming in from that interior with those two guys and Jordan Davis and of course Carter. He's just a monster inside. So, but your respects on what you think about this team. It starts with Barkley, of course, but give us the game script. Give us how the Cowboys beat the Eagles on Thursday night. Sue, go ahead.
All right, that's tough. I do want to say one thing real quick about Ferguson. He's going to get the first touchdown this year. He's going to catch a touchdown in the flat. I called Brandon Cooks getting the first touchdown last season, and I'm going to be right again. I promise y'all. Jake Ferguson's going to get a touchdown in the flat. You know what I mean? It's going to be maybe like a 7, maybe not even a 7, maybe like a 4-yard touchdown. It's going to be just slide out to his flat. Dak's going to find him. So, yeah, you'll see him early. But how to beat the Eagles, that's a great question. I think that it stems with, one, your attitude first and foremost. Dak Prescott recently had an interview, and I'll try to make this quick, where a question was asked to him, what do you say to the young guys that haven't necessarily been a part of a game where they're doing a hanging of the banner ceremony, where they're celebrating a Super Bowl, yada, yada. Dak kind of looked at the guy and smirked a little bit, and he was like, because he was asking, all the distractions before the game. And Dak kind of looked at the guy and smirked a little bit and was like, I don't know if you've ever been to our games, but we have smoke and we have fire and we have the cheerleaders and we have all kinds of things going on. We play for the Dallas Cowboys. Like, this isn't something that's new to us, noise and antics and this and that. It's not something that's new to us. You know what I mean? So I think that him having that attitude, him being the leader of the team, having that attitude kind of refueled my passion and my excitement for him as our quarterback. Basically saying like, hey, I don't care if it's the Eagles. I don't care about the Super Bowl. I don't care about none of that stuff. Like, it's a football game at the end of the day. And I do think that, seeing Dak and his success against the Eagles thus far in his career, it has been heavily in his favor. I don't think that Dak Prescott is scared of the Eagles. And I think that as long as Dak Prescott's not scared of the Eagles, I don't think any of these guys are going to be scared of the Eagles. I think the defense has heard a lot about how they're not going to be as good without Micah. And I think they're tired of hearing that. I think they're going to go out and try to show it. Now, will they be able to? I'm not 100% sure. But I do know that no one's going to walk into that thing scared. No one's going to walk into that thing shivering. They're ready to go out there and they're ready to go fight. And like I said, Dak Prescott is the guy that does it. So I said it earlier today. You want to score prediction?
We'll say that for after, for everybody.
No worries.
I will say one thing really quick. You're saying about Dak and not being afraid to face a Super Bowl champ coming off that. I think that the Tampa Bay Bucks were a Super Bowl champ that he faced, and that was one of his best games. Of course, that we had seen right off of the leg injury. He comes in there, he balls out. I think I want to say he had 3 or 4 touchdowns that game. Like, he was going toe to toe with that team. So, don't scoff at Dak coming in here with a mindset of like, hey, we know we're the underdog. We know that Vegas has, the Eagles beating us by a touchdown and more. We're going to still come into the link, and that's easier said than done. I mean, I think Nick Sirianni is undefeated in first game of the season in home openers or something like that. I think I want to say like Hurts has only lost like 7 games his entire career at the link. So they're very good at home, but do not underestimate the Cowboys coming in and playing. Cody, your points and what you're thinking.
Well, Brian Kelly hadn't won a season opener with LSU and just knocked off Clemson. So, there's always that first time.
Yeah.
As far as how you beat the Eagles, keep possession of the ball. Long time consuming drives. It doesn't necessarily have to be run. You can use a short pass game.
That's what they did against Tampa Bay.
They they have to keep possession of the ball because I don't have 100% confidence they can stop the run. If you can stop the run, you beat the Eagles.
Mm-hmm.
And really, Jalen Hurts had what 3 games over 200 yards passing last season, including the playoffs.
Yeah. I mean, he doesn't have to pass. That's one of the luxuries of having a Saquon Barkley in the backfield is not only does your offensive line get the luxury of having that back behind them and getting the push every single time that they take a snap, but also it allows your wide receivers to have one-on-one man coverages on the outside. So you can throw those deep ones to the outside and get those bombs, those big chunk plays that help you a lot. I mean, you're talking about Saquon Barkley that had I want to say 60-yard or more plays last year. 6. Like the dude is a freak of nature if he gets room and space. So that's the biggest thing. I don't care about him getting his numbers. It's if you can limit the big plays. That's where you're really going to get hurt. Keep on with your point though, Cody.
So the best defense in this case is a good offense, right?
Yeah.
So we have to protect our defense, and it's going to be kind of similar throughout the season. The more we control the ball, the better we're going to be. Because if we can protect that defense and have long, sustained scoring drives, not long, sustained drives that result in a turnover or a punt, obviously.
Yeah.
If we can sustain long drives, keep the defense off the field, and make sure every majority of the possessions are end in points. Like the Eagles take a little bit of time to get going. When you watch a lot of their games, it takes them some time to get going on offense. Once they get going, though, the floodgates open, and all of a sudden it's big play, big play, big play, big play. You don't let them get going by keeping a hold of the ball.
Yeah. That's a good point. I mean, I think that's the recipe every single week. Time of possession, get turnovers, and don't turn over the ball. I think that's one of those things that are, and even more so, a highlight during the week when you're preparing for the Eagles because that's the things that they do well. You're talking about Jalen Hurts doesn't throw a lot of interceptions. Doesn't I mean, last year not last year, the year before that he did. He had the interceptions, he had the fumbles or whatever. But for the most part, not a guy that gives the ball away a lot. Then you're talking about time of possession, one of the best teams in that area. And then also the turnovers. They create turnovers because teams are often having to try to come back, have to throw the ball. CJ Gardner-Johnson, I know he's not with the team anymore, but he had 6 interceptions last year? Those are the things that are the good recipe for winning football games. Jeff did bring up a really good point, though. I mean, the Madden curse does slow down Barkley. And that is, hey, we'll see if it holds true.
It's science.
But hey, yeah, that's definitely going to help, and we need that. We need that devil magic on our team right now. 2024 Phillies 29th in pass offense, 5th in scoring offense. You beat Philly by containing Barkley and Dallas getting off the field on third down. Yeah, that's the biggest thing. You cannot beat Philly by continually allowing them to get into third and fourth and shorts. You have to force them into 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7, those type of third downs. And that starts by stopping the run 1st and 2nd down. We'll see with what happens, but they have weapons at every single spot on their offense. So you're talking about Smitty, you're talking about AJ Brown, the prospects of Hurts running, Barkley, Goddard's coming back healthy. And then for the most part, their offensive line is completely healthy as well. Now, there's that question mark in Tyler Steen, what he can do, and hopefully with the acquisition of Kenny Clark and Osa Odigizua, they can penetrate that inside against the guy who doesn't really have a whole lot of experience, but they really don't have holes. So it's getting them in those 3rd and longs. That's a really good point by the Sport 78. Also, offensive player of the year curse. Look at the last 5 years of them. And I don't know I know it was Barkley, Jefferson was in the last 5 years, somebody like that. I don't really pay too much attention to the awards anymore unless one of my boys are in there. But Sue, what are your thoughts more? I think I cut you off a little bit earlier.
You're good, man. And based off the things that you just said as well, I mean, I think that's another reason why People say drinking the Kool-Aid, people say hopium. I always say that my delusion is delicious. I love eating it. I love tasting it. I love my delusion, man. So like maybe my delusion, man, I've been eating it a little bit too much, but I mean, one of the things that I always told people about that I was excited about with these offseason acquisitions is the linebacker core and how even Leofau, he had the green dot for a little bit last year. He played well, and I thought that he had a really good training camp, and so did Damone Clark for whatever that's worth. The biggest argument against my optimism was, yeah, good luck them doing anything when they have offensive linemen and they have defensive tackles in their lap, or they have offensive linemen pulling and doing this. Yeah, but then I come back and be like, now we got Osa and we got Clark, and they're playing next to each other. These are both competent guys, Pro Bowl, caliber guys. You know what I mean? So
Solomon Thomas also in the,
oh yeah, for sure.
And for the depth, I mean, he's, I mean, you're realistically are on paper, based on draft capital, we have 3 first rounders at defensive tackle, in Mozzie Smith, Solomon Thomas, and Kenny Clark.
Yeah. And then that's what I'm saying. Now maybe people can be a little bit more optimistic about these linebackers because they should be able to shoot gaps. They should be able to read the flow of the offensive line like the way that they want to and everything like that. So I do think that they made a move to be able to combat Barkley and his success and the Eagles and their success. You know what I mean? So that's another reason why, of course, I'm not saying that Dallas is, and I haven't given my score prediction yet, but I'm not saying that Dallas is going to go in there and stomp the Eagles out. But I'm also not necessarily shivering in my little space boots about them either. You know what I mean? Because I think that Dallas has some pieces to be better equipped to stop the run. Nobody's going to stop the Eagles' run offense completely. I don't believe that. You know what I mean? But they have better the better equipment to be able to do so. Now, will they have trouble with pass rush? Sure, but part of the thing that a lot of people say is try to keep Hurts in the pocket, force him to throw. Well, if you don't really have the pass rush, he's going to stay in the pocket. You know what I mean? Like unless you do something crazy, you know what I mean? So these are things that are kind of pointing towards me having a little bit more optimism when it comes to this game.
That Eberflus has
Go ahead, Cody.
Eberflus has a proven track record with his linebackers being really, really good in this team. He's got a really linebacker-friendly scheme.
Yeah. And I kind of mentioned it earlier, but Eberflus is a guy that's not willing to blitz a lot of times. And that kind of scares me because if you have guys, and we'll see, like maybe Azuraku is one of those dogs. Maybe Nealand has shot up and really developed his pass rush, and then maybe Sam Williams is good and healthy and ready to go. But that's a lot of question marks right now, and that's one thing that I know can kind of combat that. Is you have linebackers that can blitz the quarterback. Murray. You have a Leofau who's pretty decent at blitzing. Of course, if you had Overshown, you'd feel really good because he's an excellent blitzer. But you have some guys that can blitz from that linebacker position, and then you've got Donovan Wilson for all of his failures on the back end and as far as coverage goes, he is really good at downhill attacking. So you've got some guys that can, if their number is called, blitz and be effective at it. It's just, will he do that? And that's my biggest kind of qualm with Eberflus right now is I don't know that he's entirely on board with doing that and scheming up pressure. That's another thing. Stevens at Micah's press conference saying, how you can scheme pressure, but like you said, Eberflus doesn't blitz very often. Yeah. We'll see with what happens with that. I think that if we're being completely honest right now, we have a lot of question marks. You don't know what your linebackers are. You don't know what your pass rush is. You don't know how, if Diggs doesn't play, you don't know what Elam is. You don't know if you can even get pressure. You don't know if you can stop the run. There's a lot of question marks on the defensive side. There's a question mark on, can you stop the run? Can you run the ball on offense? The only thing that I feel positive about is the prospects of passing the ball against this secondary. However, if there's one D coordinator that has had Dak's number, it's Vic Fangio. Mm-hmm. And what he does with that too high shell and those looks and how he's a guy that doesn't blitz a lot either. But when he does, he disguises it really, really well. And that gives Dak Prescott troubles. So those are my biggest keys. get the Eagles in 3rd and long situations, and you've got to be on your P's and Q's with identifying disguises when it comes on the blitzes from Vic Fangio and being willing to take what the defense gives you. You can't be big play hunting, chasing points against this team. You have to move the ball, get it into field goal territory. 3 points is okay sometimes against this team. Not turning the ball over is what will kill you so fast against this team because their offense is that good and your defense has so many question marks. The Sport 78, sorry. Bears last year, 25th in blitz rate, but 7th in pressure rate. Yeah, so and I mentioned that a little bit at the top of the show with Sweat and that trade for Sweat a few years ago is that was the entire reason because of that is they didn't get enough pressure, but Eberflus never adjusted, never was willing to blitz. And so they made that trade. Now, the Cowboys just traded away their best pass rusher. I doubt that they just go straight up on the block and go grab somebody. And I even more doubt that it's anybody worth their salt, like a Max Crosby or somebody like that. So we'll see with what happens. But overall, I'm probably projecting the Cowboys to lose, but I'm going to give you guys the floors first to say your score predictions and tell me the reason why they lose or win, whatever it is. Cody, go ahead first.
Put me on the spot like that. I really want to say I'm projecting them to win, but I can't. I feel like it's going to be closer than the 7.5 points Vegas has it at, though. Like 21-17 range. Look, not playing at all in the preseason has slowed Dak and CD down every year. So I would have liked to see him at least get 2 series in that last game. Just 2 series, go out, get a little bit of game flow rhythm going. They've proven time and time again they start really slow when they don't get playing time in the preseason. I think that ends up hurting them in this case, and it's 21-17.
21-17. Heard it from Cody here first. I think another thing, like if you're the Eagles and you're thinking about how can we best limit Dak and CD and Pickens, because that's those are the most worrisome players on the Cowboys. We control the time of possession and we don't let them get in a rhythm. And you can do that. You can afford to do that with Barkley, with Hurts on that, RPO action, the quarterback keepers, getting those 3rd and shorts. You can do that, and you can afford to go for it on 4th and 1 at your house, with that tush push. So that's a big aspect of the game as far as the Eagles' game plan against the Cowboys. Sue, what would you have to think about this game, and what's your ultimate prediction?
Okay, like I touched a little bit on it earlier, and I'm a very emotional, passionate guy, so I'm gonna kind of give a little bit of it again. Like I said, man, Dak Prescott has been very successful against the Eagles. You know what I mean? I don't think he's afraid of them. I don't think anybody is afraid of him. You know what I mean? And all that you did is you added another weapon, that he has. I'm telling you guys, I watched Pickens in camp too. It's not like you talk about explosive. You talk about somebody who floats across the field. That's that guy. I'd even venture out to be like, dude, Pickens, is a 1B, like you said. We have weapons that we've never had going against the Eagles now. The Eagles corners are, I don't know, as good as me and EJ probably. I'm just kidding. Obviously, they're better, but
I think they're right now. It's Quinyon Mitchell, but then Adoree is starting there on the other side. So. And you know what Dak has done to Adoree Jackson whenever he was with the Giants. So go ahead with your point, Doug.
That's what I'm saying, man. I don't think Dak Prescott is afraid of anybody over there. And, I don't think that the Cowboys are going to be able to handle Barkley and handle this Eagles offense. I do think that they're going to move at will. I think we're going to get really frustrated when it's 3rd and 9 somehow, and they still convert. They get like 15 or 17 yards down the field, A.J. Brown across the middle. I think it's going to be a lot of frustration like that. I do think that the Eagles are going to put up 3 touchdowns, you know what I mean? And I also think that they're probably going to put up 2 field goals, you know what I mean? But the thing is, I think the Cowboys are going to get 3 touchdowns, and I think they're going to get Wait, what did I say? 3 field goals. I think it's going to be 30-27. I don't know whether it's going to be us stopping them late when they don't get the field goal, which I doubt, or maybe it's going to be Dak going down there and being like, look, all I got to do is get to the 50. And I know that Aubrey's about to nail this bad boy. I just think that, like I said, Dak Prescott isn't afraid of the Eagles. Nobody's afraid of the Eagles. And maybe the Eagles might be sipping a little bit of their Kool-Aid too much, too. They may be overlooking the Cowboys as well. So, that's just what I feel genuinely. I think that if it was a different team, if it was the Chiefs, I probably wouldn't feel this way. If it was the 49ers, I probably wouldn't feel this way. You know what I mean? I mean, obviously of past, but it's the Eagles, man. The Dak runs the East. You know what I mean? That's just how I feel, man. Because it's an NFC East team, I don't care how good they were last year. I don't care what they did. Dak Prescott shows up.
Man, you got more confidence than me, I'll tell you that. So what was your final score prediction?
30-27. I think the Cowboys win, man.
Okay. 30-27. My guy Jeff, 31-29. Aubrey walks it off. Pickens and Lamb both score and go for over 90 yards each. My guy Falcon, if the Eagles lose, fans will call for Sirianni's job by week 3. If I had a score prediction, I would probably say 33-24 Eagles. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
They're a tough team at home. I think that you get to face them at their full strength as well. Coming off the Super Bowl, it's the ceremony. They don't want to lose in front of their home fans. They're going to have all their players super healthy. And somebody mentioned earlier, it's Falcon. He said they have all been injured and missed 7 games if they got the Offensive Player of the year before. Barkley is not a guy that's been consistently healthy during his career. Now, some of that is I play for the Giants. My team stinks. Why would I go out there and play? But some of that is legitimate injury. Another thing is like the Eagles do have this weird health thing. I don't know if it's their actual training group or whatever is so good over there, but you remember AJ Brown when he was played for the Titans, he was always injured. And now he comes to the Eagles, and for the most part, he's been pretty healthy. Same thing with Barkley. Same thing with a couple of their players that have come over there. So I don't know if it's their training staff or what it is. They're mixing some of Michael's secret stuff from Space Jam in their water. I don't know. But for the most part, they stay pretty healthy. And that's one thing that, not that I wish injury on anybody, but it's one of those things that at some point, it's got to regress down to the mean. And they've got to have some more injuries here soon. Too much uncertainty with Dallas's offense. And our linebackers will be outmatched by Barkley. Versus Barkley, I have Philly 34-17. Wowzers. Yeah, that's a beatdown. We will see. Any more comments before we get out of here, guys?
Hopefully that 17 isn't Dallas scoring a touchdown at the end of the game, because that'll be even worse.
Yeah,
go ahead, Cody.
Absolutely will.
Saying Eagles fans will be calling for Sirianni's job by week 3. If the Eagles are trailing at halftime, they'll be calling for his job.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Hey guys, if it is your first time over here on Boys in the Zone, please do leave me a like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. I'm going to be a lot more consistent during this season, hopefully. And if you guys ever want to get on the show, I do these fan forums. This is actually a fan forum episode where I brought these 2 guys on here, and we just talk Cowboys ball. And when we go, I'm going to try to do at least one of these like every 4 weeks. And so it allows fans of the team to just get on. Maybe they don't have their own podcast. Maybe they don't even have their own Cowboys page on Twitter or whatever, but they can talk with other like-minded fans and talk about what they're seeing and what they think has to, adjust, or what things are running smoothly. Hopefully it's that, the latter on that. But if this is something that you're interested in, please do go to my Twitter, Boys in the Zone, and shoot me a message or mention me in a something, and I will try to get you on one of these. And with that being said, guys, it was an honor to have you guys on. Shout out your socials one more time. I guess Cody doesn't have socials he wants to shout out, but Sergeant Sue 31 or Papa Sue on X for my guy David, or Sergeant Sue, should I call him? We got some nice shows on here. Great roll, or got a roll, guys. Great show. Have a good night. Nice show, my guys. Get on the show, except you can expect EJ to dog on your favorite college team. Yeah, I do that sometimes. I don't know what it is with these Michigan guys. They don't do anything for me a lot of times coming out here. So I gotta dunk on them a little bit for my guy Falcon. Any last words though, my guys?
I appreciate you having me, man. At the end of the day, we'll see. I feel like every single football season is a roller coaster that we just got to grab on and enjoy the ride, man. And I'm so glad that it's back, and I'm so glad to be riding again, brother. Appreciate you for having me.
Absolutely. Cody?
Appreciate you for having me.
That's it.
Yep, that's it.
Absolutely.
Sorry,
Hey,
I
guys,
got
if you
kids
if,
talking to me in the background.
oh, you're good. If you guys are in the market for a Color Rush Micah Parsons jersey, boy, do I have a deal for you guys. Hit me up, and I will sell it at a discounted rate for you guys. But enough with the jokes. We will see you guys Thursday night. Hopefully, I'll get on and talk a little bit of Cowboys before the game. But we will see every Michigan quarterback over Lance. LOL. Yeah, I kind of agree with that one for sure. But anyways, thanks for chilling with us and talking some Cowboys. The chat was awesome tonight, and see you. Peace.